People who are/have been homeless. What was the first night without a home like? And how did you adapt to your new situation? Slept in my vehicle, couch surfed with a friend, squatted in an unused trailer, all while still working at a Walmart. Saved enough to get a crappy apartment and just kept going from there. I slept in a near-empty garage block. Put blankets over my front and rear seats like a tent and had a duvet to keep me warm. Was absolutely fine until I woke up in the morning, had a wee behind my car and noticed the white van next to me had an electric plug in it. Someone was sleeping in the van. Slept there a few more times. Kinda creepy but kinda made me feel safer too. I slept in the school parking garage. The security guard ducked with me once and I asked him whether he would rather me go park on the street, in a not nice part of block, or sleep in there where I was at least safe. He never bugged me again. None of them did. That's good. They're probably most worried you're a crackhead or something that's going to cause problems. And it'd be on their ass if you did. Exactly. I work security in a big California city. If you're just down on your luck, I'll look the other way. But if the boss finds out, I'll have to send you on your way. So don't cause a fuss and everything will be fine. I think this is good life advice in general. I worked at a gas station with a pretty big parking lot over the summer, and when I'd work the night shift, I'd usually get one or two people ask if they could sleep in their car in the parking lot. I always said sure, just park around on the side at the back. I didn't understand why people were so thankful until today. The kicker is those people would almost always come in the morning to buy a coffee and a donut. Small coffee and a donut together only ran $2, but every morning we got fresh donuts that I'd put out, and in doing so I'd have 3 to 4 to throw away. I would always smuggle one out to a guy that was there almost every night. Until I started doing that, he would never buy anything, but after I decided I didn't care if I got fired, I started doing it and he started buying coffee and donuts in the morning for him and his wife. I get that catering to the homeless can seem kind of icky to businesses, but it honestly cut down on waste. So why not? My manager eventually found out and decided to turn a blind eye when I explained everything to her. The world needs more people like you. I didn't really realize what was going on. I was about 6 to 7 at the time. Dad said we were going to go for a drive and to pack my backpack with all the clothes I could fit and one toy. Mom was just crying. Me and my brother sat in the back seat. He was a little older and was holding our Sega Genesis and looking scared. We drove for a little while. It was already getting dark, and we parked in front of a Walmart, and Dad said he had to rest for a while. Was the first of many nights we slept in the car. I remember one of my parents was always awake, with their hand in their coat pocket. Looking back, it was obvious they had a gun for protection, sleeping in shifts. Edit, Jesus, this blew up and thanks for the gold. Trying to respond to all but my poor inbox. Edit 2, WTF guys, 3 gold. Thank you. What a terrifying place to find oneself in, especially as a child. I won't pretend that I could ever begin to imagine what that was like, but I'm sorry you've had to have that experience. Hope you're doing much better, and hope you have an absolutely wonderful Kate Day. I own my own house, 3-adult household, but we make it work, and we got it worked out that we could all work minimum wage and just barely keep the house. I'll never let that happen to my kids. Me and some mates are thinking of doing this once we leave uni. Any advice? My situation is unique. My wife and I have a lifelong partner in the form of her cousin. She is aromantic, so she knows she will never outgrow our family unit for something else, and she is basically a little sister to me. For anything less solid than that, I wouldn't recommend buying a home with someone. I read aromantic as aromatic and thought that was a really nice way of addressing the cousin's body odor issue. She just smells really nice. It's part of why she's kept around. A woman smells that good. White House her. I was homeless for a couple of months a year or two ago. I had a car and a low-paying job, so I lived in the woods in a tent for a bit. The first night was miserable. I ended up sleeping really uncomfortably in the passenger seat of my car, and it was a really cold night. After that, I got a tent and slept on an old climbing pad I had. The first night was hell, but the next several weeks were actually not so bad. I had a spot in the woods where I was well hidden and would cook over a fire. I really didn't have it that bad, but it gave me quite a bit of sympathy for people who really do end up on the streets in a much more desperate situation. Shit is not easy. Hats off to you, because just reading that gave me the spooks. Weren't you scared out in the woods on your own? I'd much rather be out in the woods than on the streets. Your security comes from solitude, since you're much harder to find, and so the possibility of getting mud-killed goes way down. Sure, you got predators in the wild, but most, if not all of them, stay away from fire. I'm Australian and love camping. The only real threat is snakes and spiders here. What predators are we talking about? Bears? Mountain lions? Because to me they're absolutely horrifying. Right. People make out Australia to be terrifying, but I'm here watching videos of moose and bears like. Depends on the woods, but typically yes, bears are attracted to any foodstuffs left over and not properly raised. If you have large cats, mountain lions or bobcats, they're also a predator concern. Coyotes will move around in small units occasionally, and while they're typically nervous around people, a hungry enough coyote will be bold. Less prevalent would be wolves, in my area of the States, but they're still around too. Packs are scary. And people. The worst predator. I know the woods are less scary than the streets in this situation, from imagining it in empathy, not experience, but anyone who's lurking in the woods actively late at night is probably up to no good, unless they're lost. This is what I keep telling my husband. We have a cabin that is in the woods and fairly isolated, and we have been talking about purchasing a rifle. We are in Canada, so this is not an easy task. We have to take a course, get a license, etc. He is worried about large predators of the animal variety. Those do not scare me at all. I'm scared of people. Seeing a person out here wandering around late at night is my worst nightmare. I kept waking up in the middle of the night and would start walking home. I'd get a few steps, then stop and realize I had nowhere to go, and turn and walk back over and lay on the ground. The ground is very cold and I felt a lot of shame. First night my wife and I landed up sleeping outside. We slept in a local park that I knew. We had come down from the countryside with a few rands, enough for one meal maybe, and had hoped to stay with a friend. He was unable to give us a place to stay, so we had to sleep outside. After the insecurity of the first night, I told my wife that we have to find a safer place to sleep, so we climbed up the slopes of Table Mountain, about a 1-hour walk, and found quite an obscured spot amongst some bushes and trees. We cleared it out of sticks and rocks, made it a bit habitable, and then went to the city looking for work. We'd spend the day going from one place to the next looking for work until it started growing dark. Then we'd head up the mountain to our little spot for the night. Did that daily for a month until we were able to secure a small shack room in the townships, where we stayed for another few months until I get a job offer. Was my wife's temp waitering jobs that kept us fed whilst I was looking for work. Biggest challenge was mental. Keeping focused, clean, looking presentable, and just making my job looking for a job. When I was a teenager, I had lots of problems with my mom. I pretty much chose to be homeless. I slept at a Catholic church across from my high school so I could still make it to school and graduate early. I remember feeling really sad because I slept where they put people's ashes, and I remember being so sad that those people could comfort me in death more than anybody alive. I used to talk to them. If there's camera footage, I look insane. I never realized how alone I was in the world until I was homeless. And I never realized how cold concrete can be. It chills you right to your bones and is painful. Sleeping in my car wasn't that bad. It was summer, so it was pretty warm, which was my biggest issue. Showered in the gym, and spent most of my day at the library before going to work. For the first few nights it wasn't bad. However, one night police found me sleeping in my car and escorted me to the local homeless shelter, which was one of the most terrifying nights of my life. Since I'm lying there in a top bunk, when a huge argument breaks out because one guy breaks out some meth, wouldn't share it with a second, then a third got pissed and started screaming at them to be quiet because he needed to sleep. Edit. Since this is coming up a lot, people keep asking how it was legal that the police escorted me to the shelter. I don't know the legality of the issue. What I can say is that I was woken up by a knock on my window to see 4 cops, 2 cop cars. They were singing those super bright flashlights through my window at me, and I didn't even think of arguing with them. Showered in the gym, and spent most of my day at the library before going to work. Exactly my experience, LMAO. Worked out and showered at the gym each morning. Headed over to the library to duck around online and figure out where TF I was gonna sleep that night. That gym membership is huge when you have nowhere to go, sure. Got to hope they have a dry sauna so you can sleep without getting harassment from cops. God, the wife and I have been in this spot when moving last. It sucks not having a house. Been $15 and 4 days away from actually being homeless, but a job offer came through and thank God I've been there for 3 years now. Sleep in the sauna. Wouldn't long exposure be bad in terms of hydration? The sauna is not on at all time. It's off unless someone turns it on at night. Nobody wants to use it, so it's just a normal dark room you could sleep in. More likely to be disturbed by HS wrestlers trying to cut weight before a tournament if nothing else.